I think it's time for President Trump to just slap these Republicans upside the head. Let's get some stuff done. We'll talk about it when Freedom returns at 5.
Yeah, let's get some stuff done. What stuff and how? Those are always the operative questions. Very interesting piece on this topic of Obamacare repeal and replace. It was a friendly, jovial White House lunch President Trump had with Republican senators, but then it got a little awkward with one Nevada Senator, Dean Heller.
The other night, I was very surprised when I heard a couple of my friends, they really were and are. They might not be very much longer, but that's okay. I think I have to get them back. That's right. I refuse. Well, no, you didn't go out there. This was the one we were worried about. You weren't there, but you're going to be. Look, he wants to remain a senator, doesn't he?
Zing. Well, here's one idea. This comes to us from John Merline from an op-ed in Investors Business Daily. What the GOP should do next on health reform? Ask Hillary. The GOP, he argues, should follow Hillary and the Clinton model in reverse. After their failed gambit for Hillary care in the early 90s, what did they do? Give up? No. They did piecemeal, step-by-step, small reforms, many with bipartisan support, on a 20-year path to Obamacare. Bill Clinton signed the Mental Health Parity Act that forced insurance to cover mental health the same way they cover other health care. He signed HIPAA. Clinton signed a bill creating CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program, which parents get their children on Medicaid, even if they didn't qualify. It's a good model for Republicans, Merline argues. If they can't get a straight Obamacare repeal vote through Congress, they might consider Hillary's strategy, push small reforms that can attract wide public support, but do that and move healthcare in a free market direction with examples he uses, small reforms, like the consumer freedom option that Senator Cruz proposed as an amendment to the Senate the Senate replace reform that can't muster the 50 votes, it doesn't look like. What about that piecemeal approach?
I think I like Ted Cruz's approach of that. That would be the piecemeal where you pretend to give an option that you know will destroy it. But I don't like fixing this problem from the how they're giving it to us. Let's focus on what insurance is. To me, it's a scam. It was created to be a scam. It was created to be a money. And when it finally failed, what did they do? Well, like most financial scams, you turn it over to the government. So I want to get it completely out of the way. Let's have doctors. Let's pay for what we need. Let's go directly to a doctor. I don't need Blue Cross Blue Shield in the way. I don't need them.
Yeah, okay. But even if that was your desire, how do you get from here all the way around the world in 80 days to the point that you're talking about a real free market in health insurance? For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Philip Klein. He's the managing editor for the Washington Examiner, WashingtonExaminer.com. Philip, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So what about the idea of taking the Clintons' approach in the direction of the free market if you can't muster enough congressional Republican support to move in a more comprehensive fashion?
Yeah, I don't really think that's applicable because the problem is as long as you have Obamacare on the books, then you're not going to be able to do a free market reform. The difference is in the 1990s, the incremental expansion of government's role in healthcare wasn't contingent upon having to undo prior legislation. So when in 97, Republicans and Democrats got together and expanded the coverage of children through Medicaid and S-CHIP, they didn't have to get rid of Medicaid or do anything in order to do that. It was just an expansion of Medicaid. Whereas in this case, you can't. There are very few piecemeal things that would make any difference in people's lives that you could do without repealing Obamacare.
Health insurance industry expert Robert Lazewski suggests that it's now not uncommon to see the lowest cost unsubsidized plan in the market, the individual market, for a family costs at least $1,000 a month $12,000 a year with an individual deductible in the $6,000 to $7,000 range. This is the argument about having health insurance but not really having health insurance because you can't use it effectively financially. Do you think congressional Republicans understand that if that continues to be the case, if that's the case come November of 2018, then their majorities are in existential jeopardy?
I think that some of them do, but the problem they have now is the reason why premiums are so high is a result of the Obamacare regulations that are popular among a number of people and that a lot of Republicans are afraid to get rid of. So the reason why premiums are high is that the insurance is insurers are forced to cover a comprehensive set of benefits that are dictated by the government. They have to cover people with pre-existing conditions. They can charge people more if they based on health status. So that basically means that if you're young and healthy, you're forced to purchase more insurance that you need for an exorbitant amount of money, or go uninsured and pay a tax. That's what Obamacare has done. And so the problem is that to lower premiums, you have to get rid of a lot of these regulations, but then you have people like Susan Collins saying, oh, well, if we do that, then Republicans would be abandoning people with pre-existing conditions, and you wouldn't be able to get maternity coverage, and et cetera, et cetera.
Philip,
so that's where we are now.
I think Obamacare is one of the few government projects that worked exactly as it was intended. I think this was always the intention. The first step of Obamacare, after all, was to put nearly double the amount of people on Medicaid, and then use those people as useful pawns against people who refuse to capitulate, which is why, Philip, I just got an insurance quote for $2,400 a month for a family of four with no pre-existing conditions. Everybody's healthy. I think it is now and always was a redistribution of wealth and power play. So have we entered that 100 years of darkness? Is there any way out?
I mean, quite frankly, it doesn't seem like it, because it seems like a critical mass of Republicans have given in to the liberal idea that it's the government's responsibility to make sure everyone has coverage. I wrote in my column last week that when Franklin Roosevelt, the father of the modern welfare state, signed the Social Security Act, he said, look, we can't hope to protect 100% of the population from 100% of the vicissitudes of life. And I don't think you could get a Republican to say that now. They just seem to think that, basically we have two big government parties. You have the Democrats, which expand government when they're in power, and you have the Republicans, which hold the Democratic gain, so that when Democrats get in power, they could just expand it even more. And then when they run for office, they lie to voters by saying that they want to shrink government and reduce government. But when push comes to shove, they run for the hills, and they're afraid of their own shadows. And that's where we are, and that's why incrementally we lose more and more liberty, and why people are paying thousands of dollars for insurance.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summation. And it's interesting that Josh Barrow, who is, an ex-Republican, now a Democrat, he talks about the problem the left has. And it's a minor problem relative to what you just laid out about how the two parties function in the modern context. It's the hamburger problem, he writes. The relentless politicization of everything by the progressive left. Josh Barrow saying Democrats' problem isn't that they're on the wrong side of policy issues. It's that they're too ready to bother too many ordinary people about too many of their personal choices, all the way down to the hamburgers they eat. And he cites things like the Redskins team name and hectoring on all kinds of other ancillary issues like that. It seems to me that what Republicans are suggesting is the only way to maintain power, and it's really just to maintain our own seats, it's not to do anything other than a scaled down version of what Democrats are doing, or maybe just at a slower pace than what they're doing at same scale. The only way is if they just become so annoying, so unhinged, so hysterical, so bizarre, as we see on college campuses, that the ordinary American family just rejects what they see. I may not like Republicans, but I can't align myself with what I see on college campuses and in protest marches and the like. So that's the Republicans' big path to continuing to enjoy any electoral success, at least at the federal level as a national party, if they're going to concede the premises on all these major governmental programs and institutions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the problem is that, right now Republicans have a very narrow Senate majority, and at the polls you have people who want to see a full repeal of Obamacare and a true fee market plan. And on the other poll, you have people that want to keep most of Obamacare in place and that probably ideologically don't have any objection to Obamacare. And then you have a bunch of views in between those two polls. But when you can only lose 2 votes, it's really difficult to come up with some compromise. Now, the senators were talking last night. What they're probably going to try to do is try to satisfy conservatives by allowing for a bit more regulatory relief, such as the Cruz Amendment, and then try to buy off moderates by throwing, an extra few $100 billion at Medicaid. And that, I think, is probably going to be, if there is, I'm not saying that they'll get a deal, but if they get a deal, that's what it's going to look like. More taxes and spending than the current deal, and maybe more regulatory relief. That was the path that ended up allowing passage in the House. And that's probably, if it passes in the Senate, what you're going to see.
All right. He is Philip Klein, managing editor for the Washington Examiner, WashingtonExaminer.com. Always a good read. Philip, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line. Let's take a call.